McShin Foundation is Virginia's leading peer-to-peer recovery organization. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, let us get you connected. We can help you build a solid foundation through recovery. Here at the McShin Foundation, we are committed to healing families and saving lives.
Well, the great thing about being last is that I know y'all are looking at your watches thinking, God, how please does she have to go 8 minutes? So I know you're going to be paying really, really, really close attention, right? My name is Dusty O'Quinn, and I am a codependent in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is that I have not felt the need to manage, control, manipulate, or enable the substance use disorder that my loved ones suffer from in a very long time. It also means that I have taken back my life and that the despair that brought me to my program no longer dominates my life. There are lots of parents out there, and we all have the exact same story. Maybe a few teeny tiny little details that differ, but basically, as a parent who's lived through this, it's been the same. Sometimes it's alcohol, sometimes it's drugs. Did they get arrested? Did they just get suspended? It's the friend's fault, the school's fault, the other parent and their lives' fault. We all made up excuses for you. We opened the mail for our daily dose of heart failure. In our back pocket, we had a list of lectures to be given, depending on the circumstance. We cut out articles and put them on your pillows. Some of us highlighted the most important parts to make sure they were read correctly, thereby changing the course of your life with a single stroke of our highlighter pen. We as codependents, we lost sleep, we lost money, we lost weight, we gained weight, we lost friends, we lost relationships with other family members. We gave up vacations. We gave up our peace. We gave up our hobbies. We tumbled into the crazy vortex that is this illness, spinning endlessly on this merry-go-round, thinking that if we got off, everything would come tumbling down. And all the while we were losing our sanity, we were convinced that the only one with the problem was our loved one with substance use disorder. If they did everything we told them to do, everything would be okay. They were crazy. We were only trying to manage the crazy. I'm here to say that we codependents are just as sick as our loved ones that suffer from substance use disorder. All the things that our loved ones have lost to the disorder, we have lost as well. And yet, it's their losses that we as parents focus on, thinking that if they understand their losses, they'll get better. Our journey became their journey, and we lost ourselves on your path. The only way back for us as codependents is to step into our own journey of recovery. For us to follow our own advice that we have been giving the addict for so long. Get your life together. Stop making bad choices. Reconnect with the life you once had before all this crazy. And my favorite that we would say to our loved one with substance use disorder, you had such great potential. I would say to us, codependents, let us go stand in front of a mirror and look ourselves in the eye and say, you had such great potential. Why have you thrown it all away? Why have you given away so many parts of yourself to try to make another whole? Your parts don't fit other people. They will never, ever make them whole. One of the things in realizing our potential and reconnecting with the life that we once had is to educate ourselves about the illness. Understand the symptoms and be able to recognize them. Manipulation, lying, button pushing, lashing out in anger, stealing, some of the symptoms of this disease. If someone suffering from cancer throws up while they're on chemo, we feel terribly sorry for that person, empathetic, wondering what we can do to help. When someone with substance use disorder lies, tries to manipulate, and steals from us, we think, you horrible, awful person, I cannot believe you have done this to me. So the symptom of one disease is met with empathy, and the symptom of another disease is met with anger and resentment. Why is that? If we truly understand the disease model and understand that it is a brain disease, why don't we have the same empathy for someone with substance use disorder as we do for any other person with any other illness? One of the things I hear a lot from parents is, you are never going to believe this, or can you believe they did that? And my answer always is yes. That sounds about right, given that they have substance use disorder. Yes, I believe that, as that's a symptom of the disorder they suffer from. The real question I say to parents are, why are you surprised? This is simply a symptom of something they suffer from and deserves empathy and understanding. Set up a boundary, walk away. I'm not saying that you have to sit down and become this doormat, mom and dad, but they are suffering from an illness. And my choice as a codependent is to offer the same empathy that I would to somebody suffering through a chemo treatment. We are what we think, and we get really, really good at what we practice. So if I think constantly about hurtful times, and I tell the horror stories of this illness over and over and over, then that's where I live. I live in that awful. I live inside the disease. And if I practice resentment and anger and lecturing and being in the middle trying to manipulate all the outcomes, then that's what I get really good at. And the misery of that, right? I get really, really good at being miserable. Living with those awful feelings and awful thoughts, why do we do that? Do we think that if we tell these stories over and over that somehow they're going to have a different ending? I think that as codependents, we get wrapped up in some sort of warped rationalization that because we're the parent, that we need to be as miserable as our children are. And what a great rationalization that is, because it gives us permission to be the very worst version of ourselves. We have said some horrible things to our children, thinking in some warped, sick way that a horrible thing said to a child who's suffering from an illness is going to suddenly make them better. The things that we have done have never made them better. What do we think is going to happen? We're going to give lecture number 17 for the 920th time, and suddenly my loved one is going to turn to me and say, "Oh my God, Mom, thank God you didn't start at 9:19. You are so right. I am a total waste of a person. I better get my act together and stop using drugs and alcohol. Thank you so much for saving me." Why else would we say that unless we were expecting a response of that kind, right? It is never, ever, ever going to happen, ever. And your loved one is going to find recovery, or they're not going to find recovery. They're going to go to jail, or they're not going to go to jail. They're going to die from this illness, or they're not going to die from this illness. There is nothing we can do to control it. However, There is much we can do to stop standing in the way if we want to give our loved ones a fighting chance at recovery. I can think constantly about my own journey, think constantly about who I want to be, practice forgiveness, practice being strong, practice not buying in, practice letting go, practice not picking up the pieces, practice not picking up the phone, practice not giving advice, practice not believing what they say, practice telling them that they are smart and certainly can figure it out, practice being okay when the walls come crashing down on them. Practice commitment to our own personal journey. If I practice these things, then I get really, really, really good at them. Parents often ask me, how long will it take me to get there? And I always reply back, how hard are you willing to work? The more you practice, the better you get. It's hard, but it is not complicated. We have asked our loved ones with substance use disorder so many times, get better, be different, do things differently. Why don't we ask ourselves as codependent the exact same thing? Why aren't we asking ourselves, get better, do better, be different? Life is amazing, and then it's awful, and then it's amazing again. And in between, it's quiet and scheduled and mundane and ordinary. Embrace the amazing, hold on through the awful, and in between, find joy and strength in the quiet and the ordinary. We can recover. We just have to want to.